Okay.
Yep.
But morning. Well, I am conflict no, no, Nigel, member, the vice chair of the north east Surrey, come to board. Welcome to this meeting of the board on Tuesday, 8th March 2022 at 10:30 a.m. This meeting is being streamlined by the council website and will be available following the meeting. I would like to welcome those members of the public watching the live stream and attending in person. I will ask the members to please speak clearly when invited to do so. Microphone puts up what is being said and will ask others to please pray for speaking while someone else addressing the committee, so there isn't any interference of the audio. Also, when I was speaking for the first time, all members and officers should clearly say who they are for the sake of those watching the live on stream. If I need to leave before the end, please let the clerk know. I am sure I'll ask the clerk to confirm any apologies for the absence.
Thank you. We have apologies from Councillor Jean Crosby and apologies for lateness from Councillor Terry Walsh.
Thank you.
Sorry, apologies from Clive Andrews as well for being able to attend.
Yes.
Thank you. Do you have any members have an interest to declare? Before item 2, if so, do so now. Okay, right. Moving on to item 3, we will move on to the minutes of the previous meeting. Members, can we approve the meeting of the meeting held on 7th December 2021? Agree. Thank you. But moving on to item 4 on urgent business. I am not aware of any urgent business. So I shall move straight onto the main agenda items. On item 5, the Surveyor Davies is speaking. Do you want to take it more? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. As you would have already heard, we had apologies from Clive Andrews, the surveyor today, so I'm going to try and run through his part of the report. If any questions arise, if we can't answer them ourselves, we will take them away and seek to provide you with an emailed response. So just running through the report in the normal fashion that Clive would normally do. 3.2, so that refers to business level activity. So Appendix A, which I think you've got in colour, shows the information on cremation numbers for the past 5 years and a comparison against the year to date. I think if you look at it closely, it's quite stark the difference that 2021 had compared to the other comparative years there for obvious reasons. We're still forecasting a year-end position of 1950. I don't know if Barbara thinks that's a little bit optimistic, but that was the forecast at the time of putting the agenda together. I think February was a little bit quieter than what we might have otherwise have anticipated, but it'll be there or thereabouts come the end of the year. Moving on to 3.4, so this is performance monitoring, and the surveyor undertook his latest inspection on the 16th of February 2022. The following paragraphs there set out his findings. I don't know if anyone's got any questions that Barbara might be able to answer in relation to those particular paragraphs up to 3.12. No. So, in 3.13, there's a reference there to the environmental health officer inspection. They attended the facilities recently and have noted some occasional exceedances of CO2 emissions. I've been advised by the surveyor that that's generally where excessive temperatures are received during the process, reached during the process, which can be as a result of items being placed within the coffins that are being cremated or the types of materials that are being used. I believe Barbara was going to speak to the funeral directors and see if there was sort of any suggestion that there was some, not malpractices, but yeah, just any particular funeral directors that are associated with the instances that have been recorded here. And I don't believe that there have been.
It wasn't one particular funeral director, so we couldn't pinpoint a culprit really.
But I think you've committed to reminding them at your next reviews about what should and shouldn't be included.
All right, so go on, John, Steve.
Thank you. So we just wondered, what sort of, is it just that the family might put something in the coffin that
It can be several factors. It can be the manufacture of the coffin if it isn't to the industry standard. It can be the veneers on the coffin if it's a really high quality coffin. But it also can be sometimes coffins, the padding of them, they can use things that maybe they shouldn't quite use in them. Or families will put in things like, teddy bears and etc. Any of those things can cause the emissions problem. So it's just reminding them really that, they need to stick to the guidelines.
So moving on to 3.16, and in 3.17, there was apparently one complaint received in the past 3 months, which is going to raise here, which is relating to the webcast system. I believe the surveyor's spoken to the complainant and is satisfied with whatever explanation he would have provided. I haven't got that information, unfortunately. 3.18, employee matters, just sets out in 3.19 that the two new crematorium technicians have been completing the CTTS qualification, which is positive. So I presume they're all settling in well. So the next bit is the action plan in 3.2, which is covered in Appendix B. I've highlighted a few bits within there. So on page 15, Item 2, which is the Cameo T-Max scheme, where we sell our mercury abatement credits back into a centrally distributed pot. We received just over £6,000, I think at the back end of December, for the tradable credits from 2020. Which is in line with what we had last year. It's certainly not as good as what we used to get under the local sharing agreement we have with Putney Vale. But as more and more crematoriums become abated, there's less opportunity to trade the credits we have. So it's a little bit of windfall income, which just I don't budget for within the finance side of it, because it's quite low value. But you know, it's always good to get something out of what essentially is a sort of a byproduct of what we're doing. Item 3 on the action plan refers to the acquisition of land. I was hoping the chair would be here today to give us an update on what happened at the back end of last week, because there was a push last week to get the documentation sealed and signed off. My understanding was that SLLP are acting on the board's behalf in all matters relating to this.
Sorry, SL for that.
Sorry, South London Legal Partnership. So North East Surrey appointed those to act on our behalf, and Wandsworth Council had Ashfords acting on their behalf, so there was no conflict of interest. They both got arrangements with Wandsworth, so it was easier to sort of use existing frameworks, so to speak. And yeah, so on Friday afternoon, the representative from SLLP had arranged to meet the chair, Mrs. Birchall, Councillor Birchall, in Wandsworth Town Hall to sign and seal the documents. I emailed for an update on Monday morning, and the advisor's on leave, so I haven't had a positive update. But I was assured it was getting done Friday, so that was my attempt at bringing some positive news back here today. And then the final transaction, the monetary side of it, will happen this week as well, all being well. So I don't know that anyone else would have a further update on that, but I will email around a clarification after this, if you would accept that. The second part,
Won't accept it.
well, you're still, do you know what? I'm still going to email it around anyway. You can accept it if you wish. The second part of this is item B, so 3B, is in reference to the specification for how we're going to lay this new piece of land out. There's a procurement exercise underway, and I believe the tender returns were back at the end of last month. I haven't had a detailed conversation with the surveyor yet, but I think it's within the sort of the budget provision we've made. So there was nothing too alarming, obviously, with the cost of materials as they are. Whenever you go out for works quotes, you sort of a little bit at risk of what the market wants to bid for them at the moment. But it looks like we've made sufficient provision within the budget. Item 6 is the development of the website. We've got provision in the capital programme, 5,000 to update the website and just make it look a little bit simpler to manage. That's been delayed until sort of 22-23 really, because we're waiting to get the pictures of the new Ashes lawn, with that having all grown out, and obviously laying out the new garden remembrance to make it visually quite attractive. Item 7 is in relation to energy efficiencies, and I've highlighted a bit at the bottom of that. It just said there's ongoing investigations into measures that we can put into place in relation to energy efficiency. Obviously, with the increasing cost of gas and electric, anything we can do to reduce our usage is going to help to some degree mitigate future price rises. Yes.
Good. Thanks. Now, I'm not sure whether this is the right place to raise this or whether against the budget, but obviously we're all pretty worried about what might happen with energy and gas prices and also the supply. I don't know whether here is best or against the budget, is what provision have we got, and in order to be able to cope if and when, and I suspect it'll be when, gas prices go up because of Ukraine and what's going on there.
I mean, it's probably worth taking it now as we brought it up. So, but I will refer you to the budget pages actually. So on page 31, within the management agreement. Actually, no, Joe, I can't answer that now because I haven't got next year's budget in there. I did build in what I thought at the time was a fairly significant uplift in next year's budget. So, I mean, that could well be woefully inadequate given the figures we're seeing quoted within the press and for the wholesale gas prices at the moment. They're talking, you know, it's 800% above what it was this time last year on the news this morning, I think it was. We are fixed under contract through Wandsworth's laser procurement arrangements in terms of current supply. Those prices will be fixed up until the end of September 2022, at which point, so sort of midway through the next financial year, at which point we will be subject to rises. Then that's unquestionable, and it's just to what degree laser have to pass on the market price to us. I mean, yeah, we're fortunate that we're not in a volatile position, i.e. we're not subject to weekly or monthly price changes at the moment. But clearly, even if we've anchored in a lower price now, we know where wholesale gas prices have gone, and we will be subject to those at some point in the future.
Can I follow up? What will be then the knock-on effect? Will it be that, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, the Crem board, if it redistributes the money to the boroughs, so actually the effect is likely to be that sum would be much smaller than that sum would be smaller than anticipated, and presumably then have the boroughs accommodated for that? So because the other thing I suppose is worth asking is, clearly for everybody we would, you know, cremation's got to carry on. So if there's a shortage of electricity supply, would the Crem board count as one of the most important people to get the gas and electricity, or is, you know, what would we do?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one, and probably not one that I'm in a position to answer, but clearly, if there was a suggestion that, you know, gas supply would be interrupted, you know, nationally, and you know, the amount of gas that's available reduce, presumably there will be some sort of hierarchy about who is the most important users of the commodity, and they would have specific use. I mean, I've never even heard that mentioned, but it is a fair point actually to say that, you know, if we are limited because we get 30% of our gas supply as a nation from Russia, then clearly something has to give. But it's, you heard of?
I personally haven't heard of any talk of it at the moment.
You would like to think that a crematorium that couldn't build up a backlog of services would be seen as a preferential user, but I'm not speaking from experience there. It's just what I would like to see happen.
I mean, is that just a question to take away?
Yeah, absolutely.
It is. You're obviously in a better position to know next meeting, but yeah, it's like hospitals, for example, always have their own electric supply, but is what would happen?
Yeah, no, I'll take that away and ask the surveyor if he's got any better informed opinion on that. I mean, just back to your other point about price. I mean, the gas cost is currently estimated at 35,000 per annum, which, you know, in terms of the overall operating cost, even if that doubled, even if that trebled, yeah, that could be up to 100,000. Now, given that we distribute 500,000 a year, it would have a relatively significant impact if everything else remained constant. But there should still be a position to have some form of distribution. And when we get to the December meeting at the end of this year, we redo the budget. At that point, I'd look at what we could afford to distribute, and I would advise the Sutton, Merton, Wandsworth finance the finance officers accordingly what the distribution for that year would be once the board have approved what the respective level should be. I mean, the other option obviously is to try and meet rising costs through rising prices. Very sensitive issue, and that's something again that we would discuss in March when we in December when we look at the current budget projections and what we might do to pass on increasing costs or how far we can mitigate it by reducing the surplus back to the authorities. So and that's a normal discussion that we would have, but it might be in a slightly more volatile time than we've seen previously. So hopefully that answers the question there. In terms of supply, because we get our gas through Laser have actually who are wholly owned by Kent County Council. There was a lot of publicity during the end of last week about contracts with Russian companies and Russian suppliers. So they've actually released a statement, you know, for all their users that essentially says so this is a repetition of what they said last week. So we want to reassure you that your Laser gas contracts have no direct links with Russia. However, Russia does supply a large amount of gas into Europe, and therefore we are in the process of asking our major gas suppliers if there are any indirect links within their supply chain. And then it went on to say, so please note, with immediate effect, Laser have suspended Gazprom from our fixed price existing gas framework and will not be included them in future contracting opportunities. And then it says Gazprom are not part of our flexible gas or electricity supply frameworks. So I think there was some publicity about local authorities and other public organisations that might have direct links with Gazprom, and obviously, you know, hopefully that seeks to reassure you as far as it possibly can that from what we're aware, our gas supply network.
That's nice on a kind of moral level. Yes, but on a price, I mean, it's all in a world of price system, isn't it? And it's all backed up in one way or another in the price itself. Yeah.
And ultimately, because of the way we contract for our gas services through, you know, Wandsworth Council and through Laser, we personally don't have any say where the gas comes from. But yeah, like I say, from a moral level in terms of what's going on, it's a nice statement to make. Block my place.
We're on number 8.
Number 8, environmental improvements. In December, the board approved the installation of DNOx filtration equipment. My understanding is that the order's been placed and it is planned to be installed at the end of March. So, yeah, I think we've proven there we can actually do some things quite quickly, even if we can't do the acquisition of land too quickly.
Can I say I'm very pleased about that? Because it seems fairly simple equipment. Does this actually mean it's going to be operational first of April, more or less? Yes, it does.
Right, so back to the main agenda briefly. So 3.22, 3.23, we set out in Appendix C and D the repairs, the revenue repairs, as we would call them, and the capital works that have been approved. I really would just take any questions on that if you have any. I mean, just to say the revenue repairs works Appendix C is has a £90,000 budget and is currently forecast to be, you know, on budget for the full year. And on Appendix D, which is the capital programme, you'll notice that there's a few items within there that are slipping into future years. So lines 6, 7, 9 and 12. 6 and 7 are linked to the sort of redecoration and the decisions about laying out the pews within the crematorium building. So until we've decided what we're doing with the chairs, there's no point working out what we're doing with the redecorations and carpet. So that's just going to be pushed into 22, 23. The drainage, so line 9, I understand that when the contractor started exploring the drains with underground cameras, the damage is possibly slightly more significant than was first considered. So they're going to revisit that and see what actually needs to be done. Obviously, you're familiar with the crematorium grounds. It's a nice tree-lined driveway. Well, the roots from those trees have played havoc with some of the drainage that is there. So it's to be looked at. And I believe the surveyor's got that being investigated. And the other item that's slipping, item 12's website, which I mentioned slightly earlier. So I believe all the notes that I've left you with. I'm happy to take any questions.
Right, thank you, Mark. Right, does any one have questions? No, I do, if that's possible, in your action plan, I noticed there's nothing mentioned about the safety doors upgrade, which is mentioned in 3.11 on page 10. And is it possible, can you explain how often the bar doors shut and how are they maintained? In a recent way, I have brought this up because I was in a very okay with new doors being in a store in one of the blocks in my ward, and sadly it caused more problem because of the tightness around the door, the door, and therefore residents weren't able to push or open the door. And I wonder if there's a same issue and how often are they shut? Thank you.
I don't know for sure how frequently a fire risk assessment will be undertaken. I would assume it is periodical, and probably you would hope it was at least annual. The surveyor will certainly be asked to comment on that. I would say that what's happened is obviously the fire risk assessment has highlighted a weakness with the doors, and therefore there's a recommendation to get those replaced. We've got money within the budget for it, and Barbara's just advised me it's being done at the back end of March. I mean, in terms of whether they'll be too stiff, I mean, they will be compliant doors that do what they're designed to do. They're there to limit the spread of fire if a fire starts. They essentially compartmentalise the building and give you a barrier to enable you to evacuate safely as far as you possibly can. Whether they're too stiff to push, I mean, you would hope not. But I guess that, in a residential environment, if you've got a frail resident, that could be the case. And I hope within the crematorium environment that it shouldn't have that same problem.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Another question is on okay, we oh yeah, sorry, under section 1.7 on page 11, is it possible? Can you explain what was the mention given in more detail, please? Thank you.
Barbara Ward, Bereavement Service Manager at North East Surrey. The complaint was regarding the Wesley system. The system was late starting. We'd pressed the button, and then obviously the webcast hadn't started. We got a telephone call from Wesley who monitor it, and we had to reset the router. It was I'm not very technical, but it was an internet issue. So straight away we reset the router, and then the webcast started. So we obviously explained to the client what the problem was, and the client was satisfied that it was something that was out of our hands.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Right, brings to that's right. If you go back to page 9 on the recommendation, and it's to approve the report and as an overall the surveyors finding for the management of a quick term of the past 3 months, January to March 2022. Does everyone agree?
Agreed. Can we congratulate Mr. Andrews on getting the whatever they're called, but you know what I mean, in place in time, the DNOx, the papers. Yeah.
As he's not here, I'll take those congratulations.
You can tell him.
Yeah.
Okay. What we are bringing onto the treasurer report on page 23, and more. Do you want to go ahead and speak? Thank you.
As I think I forgot to introduce myself first time, I'll do it this time. So I'm Mark Davies, I'm the Treasurer. This report is to provide an update to the board on the performance against the management agreement annual budget as approved in December 2021, and to provide an update to the board on the latest interim accounts for the current financial year. The report also includes recommendations relating to requirements to submit a compliance information relating to the operational performance and income levels to the Competition and Markets Authority. So if I bring you round to item 3.1, and I'm just going to give a brief summary and we jump in if you've got any questions. So the transactions incurred under the management agreement are reflected in Appendix A, which is attached to the report. The figures include all costs incurred by Enable and invoiced to the board from the period 1st of April 2021 through to the 31st of January 2022, and energy costs that are passed through to the board via Wandsworth Council in the year to date so far. The total costs reimbursed by the board for the period up until the 31st of January, 10 months of the year, amount to just under 420,000 against a budgeted expenditure of 544,000. So essentially it's 77% of the budget after 83% of the year. The following paragraphs give a little bit more detail about the individual lines. Happy to pick up any questions on those. One. Moving on to 3.15, which is the interim accounts for the year ending 31st of March 2022. So Appendix B that is attached shows the transactions to date against the estimates approved in December 2021, even 22. It shows the actual income and expenditure incurred to date and a forecast for the full financial year. So on Appendix B, line 17 shows the overall expenditure and is essentially estimated to be broadly on target compared with the budget approved in December. Lines 18 and 19, so it's 3.2. The actual income levels reflect payments received and those billed to funeral directors up until the end of January. The forecast is in line with the budget, which is based on 1,950 cremations in the year. The income from memorials is slightly below what we budgeted for in December, which is linked to the availability of products we can offer at the moment because of the availability of land. Hopefully that will be resolved. And as soon as it is, and we have the land laid out, we'll be able to start recouping some of the investment that we've made into the acquisition and laying the land out. In line 22, in summary, the overall income is estimated to be under recovered by approximately 19,000 compared to the approved budgets. Line 26, sorry, line 28. How's it going? Shows the progress against the major elements of the capital programme. Well, we mentioned there's a little bit of slippage due to some schemes which are being pushed into 22-23. So 105,000 of the budget for 21-22 will be moved into future years. Line 30 sets out the overall projected surplus for the year. So the projected surplus is 115,000 compared to the revised estimate of 29,000. And the reason being it's the delays of the capital programme. Line 33, so based on the interim accounts position to date, the latest forecast shows an estimated balance for the board's accounts as at the end of the financial year of 0.809 million, which is higher than the assumed the level assumed within the revised budget, which was 0.723. And in summary, there in 3.28, it just says that it's an artificially high position because of the delays of the small elements of the capital programme. Happy to take any questions. No, Richard. And the final part of this is in 3.30. So this is a requirement from the Competition and Marketing Authority's compliance reporting requirements. So following a lengthy market investigation into the funeral sector, the Competition and Markets Authority, called CMA from now on, published the Funeral Market Investigation Order 2021. The order requires a crematorium operator to publish pricing information in a transparent manner, supply the CMA with the total number of cremations it has carried out and the total revenue it has gained from crematoria services at 6 monthly intervals, as well as submitting an annual compliance statement to confirm that it's acted in accordance with and complied with the order. For information, I've included the detail or the summary details of the order in Appendix C. It's quite technical in what it's asking for, but essentially, the order requires a crematorium operator to submit regular statements confirming compliance with the pricing requirements and information requirements set out within Article 11. It stipulates that the compliance statement must be signed by any of the Chief Executive Officer, Managing Director, Non-Executive Officer, or any Senior Director. Given the timing of when they need the submissions by, which is early in April, we don't have the ability to bring a decision back to the board each time to say, are you happy for this to be submitted? So there's a recommendation within this that it's delegated to myself or the surveyor to submit the information in a timely manner so to meet the requirements of the order. Happy to take any questions.
Would you speak?
Thank you very much. Yes, apologies for being late. I was held up at another meeting that started late and so on. Yeah, I have read the papers. I had many questions to ask and probably some of them being covered. Someone asked me, one of the constituents, what was the situation if someone needed to be buried, one way or the other, but there are absolutely no funds at all. I can't think of many examples of that. There may be people who die, but no estate whatsoever. What I wanted to know was, what they wanted to know was, what's the situation? Is it the borough that picks up the costs, or is it, or the lady and gentleman who's needing to be buried or cremated, or is it the crematorium, as it were? I mean, how's it done in terms of catchment areas and that? That's probably a bit unfair question to you, I don't know, but appreciate your fielding a bit there, but I mean, is there any sort of general rule or do you think?
I'm going to hand you over to Barbara, if I may, because
I thought that you might know in terms of how it's sort of shown up on the accounts, but.
I mean, on that regard, in terms of the financing of it, I think it will be a local authority cost. Obviously, you couldn't pass that on to the family of the deceased if they haven't got anything to actually to cover the cost in the first place. So I don't think that would be the angle. I don't think as a crematorium we absorb those costs, and I think it'd be unfair for us to have to. So there must be an arrangement through local authorities where there is financial assistance available. I'll have to take that away and have a look unless Barbara has a.
It's okay, that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. Any other question? No. Good. Right. Okay, thank you, Mark.
This is just the recommendations.
Yeah, that's right. On the page, thinking. It's. Sorry. Right, okay. Okay, thank you. Right, to point one, no, the management agreement for performance for the ending 31st March 2022 attached at Appendix A for mention. Do you agree? Agree. Okay. But 2.2 noting into account and estimated closing balance for the year ending 31st March 2022 attached at Appendix B for information. Do you agree?
Agree.
And to dedicate authority to treasurer and the surveyor to assign and submit the necessary annual compliance statement to competition and market authority as required by the order. Do you agree?
Agree.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mitch. Right, I'm now about to close the meeting, and there's no further business for the decision. I would like to thank the members and the officers and the members of the public for joining us, and to close this meeting at
11:18.
sorry?
11:18.
11:18. Okay, thank you. And the next meeting is to be on the 31st of June. Is that right?
when
21st, yeah.
Yeah, okay, right, thank you everyone.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.